Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raw, or Rules as Written. I am one of your co-hosts, Matt Robertson, otherwise known as Grape Ape.
And I'm Stefan, also known as DM Bad Wrong Fun on Twitter, as long as it lasts, I suppose. And tonight we have another amazing guest.
Who do we got, Stefan?
She knows her own name, but it is the red pen behind every, well, not every, but a whole lot of DCC. Um,
And not so much these days anymore, but hi, I'm Jen Brinkman, otherwise known as either Judge Jen or DCC Acolyte.
Outstanding. We're thrilled to have you on, Jen. Thank you for coming on. We've got some great questions for you. We know you're a bit of a Lankhmar expert, so Stefan has prepped some Lankhmar questions for you. This is going to be the
Awesome.
first time for Raw that we've addressed any Lankhmar issues, I believe. But first, we're going to get started by asking you last week's questions, where we grilled Harley. So the first one was, when spell burning, can you sacrifice more than one from one ability score? Go ahead.
You're going to get the same answer from me as he gave you. Let them burn it all down to the ground.
Yeah.
The
And
only time it's really going to have a tangible effect, like the after effects and the long lasting results from that, are if you're in campaign play. So if you're at a one shot, I'll allow it across the board.
100%. And from our poll on the Dungeon Crawler Discord server, 14 people agreed. And we got 93% say yes, you can burn from all of them. Only one person, there's somebody, I don't know who it was, but one person says you can only burn from one stat at a time.
Well, if it helps you any, I know it's not Bob, because Bob doesn't spend much time on Discord.
no.
Our next question was, when spell burning 20 points worth of ability scores, does the caster still get to roll their spell check? Now, in the poll, this one was kind of split a little bit. 33% said no, it's an alternative to normal spell burn, and the spell is treated as if a natural 20 was rolled. 29% said yes, every spell requires the roll of a dice, and the sacrifice is so great it deserves an additional roll. And then we had 25% say, oh, that was a bonus question. So it was kind of split right down the middle. What's your opinion, Jen?
I think it depends on how you phrase it. Do they still get to roll their spell check? No, I make them roll their spell check, because there is always that chance that they roll the one and they lose all of those stats. And honestly, that makes for the best story.
So even though the rule says treat your next die roll as a result of natural 20, you'd still make them roll, and if it was a 1, nada. Corruption.
You might have the advantage over me in looking at the, well, no, even the beta rules say a wizard who sacrifices a full 20 points of ability scores in one fell swoop automatically treats his next spell check as a roll of natural 20. Okay, so this would fall under a house rule, I guess, because every judge has those, right?
Correct.
The differential in this is if I get somebody who pounds the book and, no, this is what it says. All right, and I mean, you could treat it like a natural 20 and max out at what, 24 at first or second level, depending on your mod, or you could roll and it could be even better than that. So I'm really an advocate for taking that chance and making it a better story.
If you were playing personally, let's say you were playing a wizard in one of Bob's games, would you ever choose to roll a 20 to spellburn 20, or would you just spellburn 19 and get that big huge result that we're talking about?
When we're talking about the potential of 42 plus being the max in some of the higher level spells, yeah, I would absolutely roll the 20 or 24, or,
Whatever
who knows, I
it
might
is.
be on a d16 depending on my mercurial effect, right? I would absolutely roll, and at that point, if I'm already spell burning that much, in for a penny, in for a pound, what's an extra point?
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, our next question for Harley was: does spellburn do spells that require spellburn to cast count as a bonus to the spell check result?
Okay. So after Harley and I going back and forth and saying, "Oh yeah, we are totally in lockstep about this," I have to say, we watched the episode just to make sure it
Hmm.
was fresh on it, and you know, Stefan, your response about Bob's gonna have a heyday with this.
Yeah.
That was a riot. I must have played that 5-second clip like 18 times. Um, Harley, I'm really sorry, but after looking at it again, I don't know. I might be convinced to go either way on this one.
All right. That's
Simply because even going back to, as you guys invoked, the beta rules, some spells and magical items require spellburn to function, as noted in their descriptions, and that is listed under the spellburn category. So they go through all of the mechanics for spellburn, and then they say this may be required to activate some things. So I used to run it as just an activation, and I wouldn't give the player that point or those points unless they really fought for it. I might stop fighting them. I might be with Matt on this one.
right. Yeah, I'll take it.
It,
Outstanding.
it really
Uh,
depends. Tournament plays different. Tournaments always have their own rules and stuff.
Hmm.
So Stefan, you're right on board there.
Okay. I don't. At most, you're gonna convince me to make it decided by a luck check per spell. It's like, yep, you learned it the bad way, so it's just activation for you. Oh, you're lucky. You learned it the good way. Now it gets rolled in as a
Make
bonus.
the player make that personality check, not the character, but the player. Did they bring you beer or pretzels before the game? I mean, did they show up with food?
All right, that's a much better way of deciding.
that is a much better way of deciding. 92% of the poll results of the fans on the Dungeon Crawler server disagreed with us, Jen. They said it's a component of casting the spell. So we're going to change minds here. We're going to change minds.
I mean, okay, I'm staring at the spine of my Shanna cover, but I really like the original intent to come through on this, and the beta rules aren't as available or common to, I guess, the newer fans, if you will. So I'm trying to invoke a little bit of that part.
And
So
speaking of which, we are referencing the 8th printing, but show us what you got there, Jen. Show us your, if you hold it up for us. Ooh, look at that,
complete with
everybody.
inscription from the Dark Master on the other side, saying here's a new prayer book for the Chief Acolyte. Merry Christmas.
Nice.
The Dark Master has spoken.
All right, well,
It's
we
good
had
that he
one
gives
more.
Christmas presents. He's not too dark. It's not all
Oh
cold.
no, that was years before I got deeper into the fold.
Oh,
No.
no more Christmas presents. Okay, things have changed.
Life has changed, man.
Well, our
But
last question for Harley, one of them that we did for the poll results was: when a caster dies, do any ongoing spell effects cease?
if it's something that the caster has to be concentrating on, absolutely. If it's something else like I have enlarged our dwarf and he's out there running amok and it's supposed to go for another 4 rounds or 4 turns, and I'm lying in a puddle of my own everything. I mean that's one and done, right? The
Hmm.
effects are out there. So I don't know as I will agree with Harley on that one. Sorry. But
So concentration
I will
spells
say
like choking
it
cloud, they go.
depends. Yes.
And 66% of our Dungeon Crawler poll fans agreed with us that, yeah, situational, if the concentration is acquired, it ends.
Man, I
But
gotta hop around these polls.
now we are ready for the regularly scheduled questions specifically for you, Jen. Stefan, do you want to hit us with number one?
Yeah, number one is kind of a more of an instructional question because it's I've run a Lankhmar campaign. I've seen people do it online, and they don't use the patron die. So just to help people out, and I think you did this in Spellburn too. But how do we use that patron die?
I got to tell you, I've never even heard of the patron die. I've never even used it
You need to
in,
play in
in
a
any of the
Lankhmar game, my
Lankhmar.
man.
I have.
You,
There was on the original Lankhmar character sheet that Bob and I put together, there was a little space instead of the little box for character portrait. It had 3 or 4 lines for patron number 1, patron number 2, patron number 3, and yes, that's because you can have more than one patron, especially in Lankhmar. Now, I'm actually going to pop open this Spellburn portion again in the beta rules because there is a very important bit in here. And why did I close my book? Okay, so I'll get to that one.
Let's tell everybody.
Oh, go ahead.
While you're looking, let's tell everybody what the patron die is. Elaine, if you can bring up handout 1A.
Oh,
On
well
page
done.
31, it says, once your creature has become a patron's agent, they can request assistance from their patron at any time, seeking a small portion of the being's supernatural power in order to achieve a difficult goal or turn an abject failure into a triumph. The agent calls on their patron, placing themselves in debt to the power in return for aid. The barding resolves through a new special game mechanic called the patron die. Upon becoming a patron's agent, a character receives a D10 patron die they can roll whenever requesting help from that power.
yeah, and generally it's you want low on this die. You roll your
Right.
normal d20 to make an attack roll, and if your patron die, if you're asking for help, you also roll your patron die, and if the patron die is lower than the natural roll on your d20, then you get help, and there's a table in there that has a specific bonus.
Right, and we've got tables for 8 different patrons in there. And the idea is that as opposed to clerics having deities where everything they do is in the name of their god, and that is what the god gets back from it, right? That's what the deity gets is the increased followers, the increased believers and followers of the cleric's power, etc. With patrons, it is a mercenary exchange. It is a favor for a favor. And so when you start on that D10, that means you have the greatest likelihood of scoring something on that patron die that is lower than your action die result. And once you achieve a favor, if you will, that patron die then goes up to a D12 and 14, etc. The idea being that it's harder and harder to get your patron to do anything for you, and it's harder and harder to make that result slide underneath your action die result because you need to do something for that patron now. You've got to work that back down a die, work that back down to a D10. You've got to pay off the favor that you've already been granted.
So it's very similar to the Wayfarer in Dying Earth and how they use their luck die. If they make a luck check, their luck die goes up to a D24, and it gets
Matt,
harder
the
and
Dying
harder.
Earth episode has to wait. It's not even out yet.
I'm just saying it's the same mechanic. So
Kind of, sort of. No, that the Wayfarer, that luck mechanic, the superfluous luck, I believe, that's a little bit different and actually a little bit crunchier, but Dying Earth is crunchier all over. You can thank Mr. Vance for that. No, more of a matter of the way patrons are supposed to be in DCC. And I just realized why I'm not finding it, because it's in the Judges rules. It's chapter 8. The bond between wizard and patron is established after the supplicant completes the appropriate ceremony using patron bond. We're all familiar with that. The patron pact is not the same as worship. A wizard patron simply negotiates for power, offering services for aid, and As I mentioned, it is a mercenary exchange, nothing more. Patrons are not always gods. In fact, full deities, no, they don't deign to keep company with mortals. That's just way beneath them. That's why most patrons are uh, demons, devils, demigods, and you're not often going to see a full god as a patron. To that point, in Lankhmar, yes, you'll see Mog the spider god, you'll see Isek, god of the jug, or Isek of the jug, sorry. Don't crucify me, Mike. Um, and the hates, the gods of Lankhmar are their own thing, with of always being italicized. Style note. Um, Outside of the gods of Lankhmar, everyone else, they're the minor gods. That's why you have the Street of the Gods. The more powerful a god or deity gets,
Worshipped as gods, but they're not. They,
yes.
lower G for
I
sure.
mean, we've all read the stories where, oh, well, this temple is no longer occupied. What happened? Oh, they lost followers. They had to move down the street to the small place.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's very tit for tat. You know,
Jen,
you get what you put in.
the book specifies wizard and they have to do the patron bond, but can thieves and warriors get patrons as well?
In Lankhmar, yes. I am specifically looking at DCC
Got it.
to read those passages. In Lankhmar, yes, anybody can have a patron. Anybody can have more than one patron. Patron bond is not required in this case. It can simply be a handshake deal.
All right. So let's say me and Stefan are in a game and we're battling it out with the monster, and you're the judge, and I call out to Death, Death, save me, and I'll owe you a favor. Would I gain a patron bond right there if if he hears me, he or she?
Um,
It.
I would say go ahead and try to roll a patron die. Keep in mind that if you don't succeed on your invocation, things could work out a little worse for you than you'd planned.
That's a good idea. I like that. Just
Yeah.
go ahead and give it a try. Elaine, if we could bring up handout 1B, this is kind of the mechanic for that patron die. Before an agent makes an attack, spell check, savings throw, skill check, or attempts to restore health, they can request the aid of a patron. So it almost gives a little cleric-like ability in there as well. They roll the current patron die along with the action die appropriate for the task being attempted. If the result on that D10 to start out with is less than the unmodified, less than or equal to the unmodified roll, so no modifiers. It's just the result of the D20. Is that right, Jen?
Just your action die.
Yeah. If you roll your D20 or your action die, it lands on a 13. It's just the 13, not anything that might add or subtract from it.
Now, I would add a stipulation that wasn't actually written in. Okay, not rules as written. Sorry. I would allow a deed die if you're a warrior trying to invoke, say, Kos. I would allow the unmodified total of your deed die and your action die.
Good point. Good point.
Makes sense, yeah.
How do we pronounce that? Judge's Guide to Niwan or
Nawan, I
Nawan?
believe.
Nawan?
Nawan is how Mike has always said it, and Nawan is how they say it in all of the audiobooks, so I'm inclined to go that way.
Lynn, if you could bring up handout 1C for the viewers. This is page 32 in the Judge's Guide. It shows the patron die results and gives, +1 to a +6 in attack, +1 to +6 for the spell checks, etc.
Yeah.
And then after
I mean,
that,
it's really good. You theoretically have a 1 in 10 chance of getting to add a +6 to your spell check. So patron dies are great, and there's no penalty for failing it. You just have to do a little something if you actually get it.
I would say they still know that you've tried.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you can't try again on the same task. It does say that in there.
I would try to work that in. I would definitely say no, especially not the same encounter.
right, and that's handout 1D that you guys are referencing. It says patron die result is greater than the unmodified result of the action. Patron refuses to assist its agent. They can try again at a later date, but not for the same action or activity.
Right.
I just meant that there's no mechanical failure like there is with a disapproval with a cleric
Right.
on failing to call for aid. You know, but there certainly should be a role play, work it into the story, because if you're not working failure into the story, are you even playing Lankhmar?
If the patron die result is greater than the unmodified roll of the action die, the patron refuses to assist its agent. If the patron refuses to aid the agent, assistance cannot be requested again. Yeah, wow.
A little bit lower on that page, it says
You're right.
on handout 1E, it says once your agent has successfully used their patron die, like Jen said, then the die goes up on the dice chain. So the D10 would become a D12. It'd be harder to get under your unmodified roll. And a D14, a D16, etc., unless you pay that off. And that's handout 1F. On page 33 of the Judge's Guide, it says an agent must perform a service for the patron in order to balance the books between them and pay off their supernatural debt. For each service performed, the agent's patron die for that patron alone is reduced by one size. Because as Jen said, you can have multiple patrons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
no more than 3, otherwise those 3 start getting a little rowdy and insulted.
Well, I think they get rowdy and insulted anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but no more than 3.
Yeah, there's actually an example at the top of page 33 with Olgvor the Mingle being an agent of both Cocked of the Black Ice and Mog the Spider God. And yeah, it may not end well.
Yeah.
Now the whole
There's a
thing
fun
about
picture.
failing to invoke, I mean, the patron has heard you or felt you or sensed you, insert sense here, but has refused to grant aid. It almost seems to me that if you're going to continue to invoke that patron without doing something for them in return, like through campaign play and prolonged usage of this mechanic, I'm going to start adding a couple points to that difficulty to begin with. Because it's almost like repeatedly casting blessing despite all of these divine disapprovals, deity disapprovals. You just keep trying. Well, eventually he's going to hear you and smack you down. So eventually he's going to get tired of you just sitting there with your hand out and say, you got to do something for me first or we're done. And you might lose your patron die.
That's a very good point.
Now,
I'm a
Jen,
big fan of this setting because of actions equal repercussions, consequences. I love it.
There is healing in Lankhmar, but there aren't clerics. But is this kind of a little loophole, a little catch-all? If we bring up handout 1G, Elena, on page 32 from the Compendium of Secret Knowledge, the other book in the Lankhmar, it says, agents serving a patron with the healing area of influence can attempt to ask that entity to intervene on the behalf of either themselves or another. The agent can only do this while the subject to be healed is recuperating, so not in the middle of a fight.
Right.
The agent must personally tend to the subject's wounds in order to serve as a conduit of the patron's aid. And the agent has to make an intelligence or personality check and rolls their patron die as normal. If the patron die is less than the result of their action, plus the ability modifier, the patron intercedes, granting additional healing. So is this kind of like a little loophole for healing?
This is a part of the normal healing. Well, what is normal for Lankhmar? Taking a drink or taking a moment in battle.
The recuperation period, you have to spend a point of luck. I mean, no matter what, the person who wants to be healed has to have a point of luck spent either on his behalf, by other people with fleeting luck, or from his own permanent stash. And that table that you showed with the patron die results, I mean, all you get to do is roll one hit die, add your stamina modifier and your level if when recuperating specifically. And then that's kind of like that roll that you just described, Matt, it's kind of like a control die, because that's what's going to determine what your bonus is between +1 and +6, or if there's a bonus.
Makes sense. I do have a question though. I think this could be a typo on page 32. The end right there. It says at the very last sentence, if the patron die is less than the result of the action die roll plus the ability modifier. So that one right there adds the ability modifier of whatever they're trying to roll. Should that just be?
No, I think that kind of makes sense because it's a control die. Plus, that makes it easier, really.
Yeah.
That's specifically talking about the intelligence or personality check too. So
Right.
it's one of those exceptions to the rule that's a new rule.
All right.
And I've always used that as I've always used the sidebars as optional rules, to be honest. If someone at the table brings it up, sure, let's look into that, let's do it. But I don't normally offer it because it's a little too confusing for people who are playing at a con game who are brand new to the setting.
All right. Well, James usually runs our Lankhmar games on the Dungeon Crawler server. And James, if you watch this, I'm going to be expecting a patron die next time we play.
Who's your patron?
I'm undecided. I might call out to 2 or 3 of them. Whoever's listening at the time.
For roles like that, it's like pick one, dude.
We'll see.
Say.
All right, well, we'll move on. I think people, they better understand the patron die now. We did a good job of talking about it.
Well, and if you're playing a Lankhmar game, ask to get a patron. Yeah, ask to get a patron and use that patron die. It's there.
Anybody can have a patron, especially if you were playing in the literary Lankhmar setting with just the warriors, wizards, and thieves.
And even if you don't want a patron, you can have a patron.
What's our next question, Stefan?
Our next one is Lankhmar doesn't use occupations for the backgrounds like normal DCC. So how should skill checks be handled? How do we decide if you're getting a D10 or a D20 if you're trained or untrained?
I think that's going to be wholly up to the judge and the player to work out. But we also have Benisons and Dooms, which can increase your background abilities or knowledges. So I would, honestly, I would tell players, don't sweat it. If there's something you want to do, talk to me, tell me if it makes sense, and we'll either go with a D10 or D20, or maybe a D14 if I'm feeling, kind of in the middle.
Especially coming from DCC, I know a lot of my players are going to be like, well, do I recognize those seeds? If they were a farmer or something like that.
Right.
And so let's explain what we're talking about here, Elena. If you could bring up handout 2A, please. On page 67 of the DCC RPG, it says, in general, skill checks are associated with either a field of knowledge reflected by their 0 level occupation or a specific ability, such as strength or agility. And then if we can bring up handout 2B, also in the DCC RPG, it says a character's 0 level occupation determines the basic skills they can use. If the player can logically roleplay the connection between their occupation and the skill that supports the skill in question, then they can make what is called a trained skill check. If they can't, it'd be untrained. And finally, if the skill is something that any adult could have a reasonable chance at attempting, then any character can make a trained skill check. So I kind of look at that last little sentence there, like a little caveat that we could pull over to Lankhmar.
And keep in mind that because there's no funnel in Lankhmar, you all start out as some level of hero in the city of 1 million or whatnot. There's hundreds of thousands of people in this dank little city, you probably do know half of what you're after.
This is true. And to
Very
your
true.
point, let's bring up handout 2C. Page 4 from the Compendium of Secret Knowledge said every PC in Lankhmar is human, but that doesn't mean they're identical in skills, opportunities, and training. When a character is born in Nehwan, it's just as important as what they eventually become. Farford's birth in the Cold Waste granted him physique, his training as a singing skald, and his training in weaponry and mountain climbing, making him very different from a warrior born among the Mingles of the steppes, for instance. In Lankhmar, when you create a character, it has where you've come from, right?
It does. It has your place of origin, which then also leads to your possible background points, which
There you go.
makes up for the fact that you don't have a funnel to grasp your background from.
All right, and handout 2D, Elena, also from the Compendium of Secret Knowledge. Characters in DCC Lankhmar are very similar to their counterparts in a standard DCC RPG campaign, but there are some variations. These changes are opposed to generate characters more akin to heroic individuals that populate Fritz Lieber's tales. On a whole, DCC Lankhmar player characters are slightly more capable than their DCC RPG cousins, but not enough so as to change the tone and general rules of the game. What do you think, Stefan?
It's all exactly like that. It's so, as Jen said, just kind of ask what you want to do and say, I want to do this to whoever's judging the game, and they will probably say roll a d20. Occasionally there'll be a d10, but yeah, it's all written there, and it's all related to your whatever you imagine your background to kind of be before you started swinging a sword for a living.
And we've got one more handout to reinforce what Jen said. Handout 2E, DCC
Reinforcing
Lankhmar. DCC Lankhmar doesn't utilize the zero level funnel. The reason for this is that the heroes of Nehwan are precisely that. They're heroes. They aren't jumped up gong farmers and cheesemakers who got lucky, but individuals gifted by chance and fate. Let's see. Let's go through and officially answer this. Lankhmar doesn't use occupations. How should related skill checks be handled? I would say based on their place of origin. If they come from a farming community or lands that are rich in farmland, then they're going to have farmer skills. If they come from a more military place with armies and soldiers are trained from the time of birth, then they're going to have more martial skills. Stefan, what's your official answer?
Basically the same thing. At the table, the way I'll phrase it would be to just go, hey, do I know what kind of poison this might be? Do I know what kind of seeds you are? And I will say, tell me something about your past that that would mean you do know about this.
That's a good thing.
So get them to make up that story a little bit there. Have a teeny little, not a flashback, but just say, oh yeah, when I was a kid, this is my unmentioned backstory because I'm so mysterious.
Oh, you're so bad. You have so many background points to choose from already. With your Benisons and Dooms, you can warp that into whatever you want. If you have a contact within the Thieves Guild, well, do you know anything about X area of the city? Quite possibly. Do you want to check with your known contact? I'm a really, really big fan of ask if you can find something out. Don't presume that you don't know something, especially about a city as large as Lankhmar, with the levels of intrigue as high as they are.
There you have it. All right. Well, I think we have one more Lankhmar question, right, Stefan?
Yes, we do. This is one I've asked at the table. Matt has asked. I've seen it asked a lot.
This one happened to me. This one actually happened to me.
of this one.
And I think I know the answer. I know what I would answer, but if two thieves, or just one thief, but specifically if two thieves are bonded with the split soul hero benison, does each point of their luck count? Spend each point of luck that they spend count as doubled on their luck dice. So we do need to define the split soul hero benison to give context to all the people who don't instantly recognize what we're talking about. That would be
Let's do
handout
that.
Do you have a
3A.
handout for that?
We do.
We
Okay.
do.
So read that handout out for us, Stefan.
Yep. So it is one of the benisons. A PC who starts with this one can choose one other player character who, assuming they agree, also gets the benison for free. It doesn't count against the number of benisons or require any extra dooms. And what it does is allow each one to spend luck with a double benefit to the other. And it does specifically say each point of luck grants a +2 bonus to the assisted PC's roll. So it's kind of with a thief. Is it still just a +2 bonus, or are they gonna, double their luck die?
And so the reason we're asking, because thieves in Lankhmar use the luck die like thieves in DCC RPG. And so I was playing a thief, and somebody gave me a point of luck, and I said, yes. And so I said, do I get to roll my luck die for that? Because if I spend a point of luck as a thief, I use my luck die.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Jen?
Unequivocally, I have a response for that. Man, you're not gonna like it, and I No, I don't even apologize for it.
Elena, get the bleeper ready. She's about to spout off.
Oh, I'm just trying to find the specific fleeting luck rule, and I'm not putting my finger on it right this very minute, which is like horrible for me. It might be not in the exact place I'm looking, and that's okay. Fleeting luck, anybody at the table can spend a point of their own fleeting luck and gift it to anybody else on a 1-for-1 basis. If you have the split soul hero benison, that 1 point becomes 2. So you essentially turn into halflings for each other. 1 point equals, or 1 point of luck equals 2 points added to your roll.
Bonus.
And
Yeah.
the difference here is that for the split soul hero PCs, that can extend to their permanent luck, the luck that's on their character sheet. You can burn that down on a 1-for-2 basis, just like a halfling again. We have been over this with thieves, and we've been over this over and over and over. Let's start with you first, Matt. It's a 1-for-1 basis on a regular at a table without a split soul hero.
Right?
If you want to, if you want to spend a point of luck of your own or of your own fleeting luck, you may roll your thief die for it, your luck die for it, if you're
Right.
spending it on your own behalf. If somebody else is spending it on your behalf, it's worth a point. Suck it up. Now, if you are a split soul hero with somebody else at the table and they burn that 1 point for you, it is worth 2 points. They do not burn a point so that you can roll your luck die. And honestly, that would make no difference because you could actually only end up getting 1 point out of that. Especially at first level, you're only standing to gain 1 or lose 1 from that, right?
Yeah.
So I would say take the 2 points, be happy, say thank you, and turn it back around to your split soul buddy on the next time.
And this was the first time I had it. The first time I had it, I was playing a thief, and my split soul partner gave me 2 points of luck, and I was like, "Well, I'm a thief." I was like, "I'll take the 2 points, thank you." Does that mean I get to roll my luck die twice? Because I think we were playing like level 2, so it was a D4.
I found it. It's page 13 of the compendium of secret knowledge. At the bottom of column 1, under the class clarifications and modifications for the thieves, luck die and fleeting luck. Thieves roll their luck die whenever they expend luck to aid their own rolls, right? So you can spend that point
Okay.
and roll your luck die. This applies to both permanent and fleeting luck. And wow, it's like I actually know the rules. I'm really excited now. The sole exception to this rule is when you spend a point of luck to heal. This is always treated as a single point. So luck that comes in from other people, that's on them. That's on their abilities. That's on their mechanical end. It does nothing for you. It is a
Yeah,
1
that,
point.
that makes
If
sense.
if it's your split soul hero, then it's worth 2 points. And like I said, you should still smile and say thank you.
So, Elena, if we bring up handout 3B on page 9 of the Compendium of Secret Knowledge, this benison can apply to more than one PC. If 2 or more PCs begin the game rolling or choosing this benefit, they can possibly form an entire party of split soul heroes. Now, in this instance, Jen, if you had a whole party and everyone in the party, let's say 4 people, wanted to give 1 point of luck to the 5th person who had just rolled, would that be a +8? Can you do it more than once? Can each of them give a split soul point of luck?
I've never seen a limitation to the amount of fleeting luck that can come in on a 1-for-1 basis. However, each PC, I believe it states in your you may not have clipped the entire paragraph for
Does it
your
say it underneath
handout.
there?
Um, Benison can apply to more than one PC if 2 or more PCs begin the game rolling or choosing this benison. They can possibly form an entire party of split soul heroes as their reincarnated forms of a great hero whose soul was fragmented multiple times. Um, it's possible that you could chain things along, but one person cannot be the recipient of 2 points from everybody there. So I think it would be, Stefan and I, and then you and Stefan, and then maybe you and Elena, and then Elena and I. But I don't think it would be a good idea to chain one person to every single other person in the party. As a judge, you do have some say over that.
Well, the way I read it is that if you had a party of 4, they were all the same soul, so they could interchange luck between all
Yeah.
4 of them as they chose.
The example of the great hero soul fragmented multiple times does make me think it would be all encompassing, not a chain. But
I would be open to it if the role play went that way. If it starts looking like it's a little bit more, leaving one person out in the dust, well then whoever's being most antagonistic maybe loses that benison.
Nice. And I think we got one more handout for this question. Handout 3D, if you would, please, Elena. This is page 13 of the Compendium of Secret Knowledge. It says how Lankhmar thieves and DCC RPG are pretty much the same. And then down at the bottom it says thieves roll their luck die whenever they expend luck to aid their own rolls. So that reinforces what Jen says again. This applies to both permanent and fleeting luck. The sole exception to this rule is when they spend a point of luck to heal. And
That's so funny. I didn't know you had a handout for it, Matt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Oh, that's
jump
all right.
over you.
It's good when we can reinforce the guests, what the guest says.
Although looking at the Twitch comments, I have to point out that Bob is correct. If a halfling gives your thief luck, that isn't doubled either. And someone else brought up a really good point too. So yeah, it's yeah, no,
it's just a 2. It's a
I'm a firm believer in that the mechanics lie on the person invoking the rule,
well,
not on the recipient.
let's give our official answers. If 2 thieves are bonded with a split soul hero benison, does each point of luck they spend count as doubled on their luck die? Stefan, what's your answer for that one?
It is merely doubled. The thief luck die doesn't come into play. This is not 3.5 where you have a bunch of feats that are broken. It's not that. This is just take your +2.
As much as I wanted it to be in the game, I agree with you both. You can only affect your luck with the luck die, not someone else's luck. So I agree with you guys. But I did try to sneak it in there. I was like, do I got to roll my luck die?
You always do.
I mean, you got to try.
I mean, other people have asked, and I don't hold it against you, but I have to remind the thieves that, like at a normal table where you don't have a split soul hero venison, if they are spending fleeting luck on behalf of another person in the party, it is still a 1-for-1. They don't get to roll their thief die before bestowing that amount of luck. It's just the 1-for-1 fleeting luck.
I agree with you. All right. Well, Jen, we've got a couple more questions for you. These are in the DCC RPG realm, so we're out of Lankhmar. Elaine, if you could bring up question 4. If you're engaged with multiple enemies, how many withdrawal attacks are allowed? So let's say you're engaged with like 5 enemies and you try to run. Do all 5 of them get a hit? Or your whole party is surrounding one guy and they try to run? Does the whole party get a hit?
I think it totally depends on 2 things. What order is the initiative in? What order
Okay.
is the PC in the initiative? Followed by how crunchy does your judge like their game? Because I will honestly, I absolutely hate attacks of opportunity, withdrawals. No, give me a luck check. Plain and simple. I'm rules as written though, because that's what the show's
That is
I mean, you can
definitely
tell us your
not
house
rules as
rule too,
written.
though. We
rules
want to hear
as
your
written.
house rule.
Rules as written, I will say it's ambiguous, and I will agree with anyone who stands on that point and wants to run it their own way. I'll when I'm at their table, I let them run it their way.
Well, handout 4A. If we look at handout 4A on page 95 of the DCC RPG, it says once a character is engaged in melee, they cannot back away without opening themselves up to attack. If a character or monster withdraws from an active melee, whether to retreat, move to a new position, or attempt some action, their opponents, plural, immediately receive a free attack. So it does specify in the rules that it's everyone. But Stefan, you found a great handout on the forums.
Yeah,
Want
I
to share that
found.
with us?
Sure. So
What year is it from?
Not
it's
a
from
handout.
2012. Well, it's from 2012. So, but I think it's slightly before publication. But
Tell us what JG's words of wisdom.
yeah, it's handout 4B. It is
Oh, Dark
he
Master, what have you
he
gotten us into?
calls it the free whack rule. Says it's been using it since the 80s. With the in the 1980s, it was sure if you want to turn around and run, you can do that. But as soon as you expose your back, the orc's going to get a free whack. With the goal being that it doesn't grant extra attacks, it doesn't change the way a creature normally operates, and by no means should it make things more complicated than if you turn your back, the guy's going to swing for it. I'll say, in my own opinion, I've been reading a lot of Conan recently. If all the enemies freeze Conan or flee from Conan, he usually like kills one more guy. He doesn't kill all of them. He doesn't get 5 free at attacks on each,
Okay.
fleeing monster or combatant. One more guy dies.
The problem with this though is that when my monsters try to flee, all my players want to hit it, right? And I can't favor one player. So
Well, what constitutes active melee then? Are we getting into that? Is it active melee is the person that the monster was attacking, and the person who is attacking the monster, is that active melee, or how do?
in
It's
my
vague.
opinion, as soon as an attack is taken, then they are engaged in melee. So if 4 players attack the melee attack the monster, it's engaged with 4, and I'd have to give all 4 of them a whack. Otherwise, they would, raise Cain.
Depending on space and circumstances and all of that. And I mean, it also totally depends on the cognitive states of all of the opponents. Have any of them been blinded? Have any of them been knocked prone? Because, yeah, I would allow someone in a non-advantageous position to go for that sort of attack, again, because it makes a great story. Especially like the warriors. Okay, well, dude, you're prone, but make a really good roll and give me a 3 or better on actually give me a 4 on that deed die. Make sure that it's, nice and cinematic, and now you describe it.
Stefan,
And
you
I've
found
done that
another
for real.
handout. You
Yes, and
found
then
another handout, and Daniel Bishop gives a great example.
yeah, 4C is the handout, and not quite official, but he's written enough. It's almost official, I'll say. But it's his opinion on the forum, so it's
Oh, I put official on the ballot. Yeah, that's supposed to
oh
be
you get
unofficial.
well, it's
That's a
officially
mistake.
unofficial. Whoops.
Good help is hard to find, right, Stefan?
The judge is always right. Let the rules bend to you and not the other way around. That's the most important thing he says in there. Um,
And that's
then he
straight
goes
from the book.
on saying, "Yes, it is." Page 314. He quotes it right there. Um, and he says he thinks it should probably apply to like moving through enemies as well, but then you have to figure out, at what point is it too many creatures moving by you to attack them all? He gives an example, and
I love the example.
yeah,
We got to read that. So imagine
okay.
that you open a door and there's 5 mid-sized dogs coming out. Even if all the dogs have collars and leashes, is it conceivable that you can grab all 5 dogs? So, I mean, I think that's a great example of like mass, movement and melee. If the monster leaves, probably. I mean, I don't know. This is a tough one.
At what point does it turn into 4.0 and you have to break out the map and minis?
I,
Because that's the point where I'm out.
I think
I,
Jen, you alluded to a luck check earlier. I think one person should get the attack, and then anyone else who conceivably can has to make a luck check. Because otherwise, it's just too busy,
right.
too many swords swinging around. That might be a good way to
Or a
rule it.
reflex check or save.
Yeah.
Reflex save maybe because of everything going on, especially if say the person withdrawing is second to last in the initiative lineup. Well, the person at the bottom of initiative is definitely going to get their action, right?
Mhm.
Are you with me on that part at least?
Yeah.
Beyond
Yeah.
that, go ahead and let them, especially if you have anybody in the party who has already been involved with a ranged weapon or a ranged spell. You know that there's the added chance of these foes getting felled by them, not just these people who have to take flight after them, and then it becomes a whole new thing with the people trying to withdraw again. And I really like things a little tidier than that. I love cinematic moments, but I don't want to be there for an hour and a half with the same moment.
Let's give our official answers. If engaged with multiple enemies, how many withdrawal attacks are allowed? Now, this may be the unpopular answer, but I believe it is rules as written. I'm going to say whoever's engaged in melee, all those people would get an attack. And that's because in the rules on page 95, it says their opponents, plural. So, rules is written. I think anyone who is engaged in melee gets that attack when they withdraw. Stefan, what's your official answer?
Uh, rules as written, I would say, yeah, you get a free attack, but you're not going to get multiple free attacks. If 5 enemies flee you, you must choose one because a round is 10 seconds. You can only swing so many times before you're turning into the flash.
Oh, that's
All right.
interesting. Putting it at a multiple, flipping that so that it's
Yeah.
one versus many. Hmm. I will
It's,
say it's still kind of ambiguous as written because it just says its combat opponents immediately receive a single free attack. Um, does that mean everybody involved in the combat or just those in melee? how sticky do you want to be about these rules?
Well, you tell us,
It talks
Jen.
about active melee.
What is
So
your official
Talking of
answer?
melee.
no, rereading it, darn, I see what you're talking about. I've only ever given it to melee.
Devil's
I'm
advocate,
sticking with
sorry.
it.
No, things may have changed in the 9th printing. They may have been clarified a little bit. I haven't had the opportunity to dig through the Pogue cover version yet, even though I'm really itching to. But I would say, most people are going to be running from modules. So take a look at the modules first, see what's written in for each foe, because there's a lot of special moves that each one has, especially in regards to withdrawal, or once they get down to X number of hit points, and this is how they withdraw. So I would kind of blend the two maybe, and see what the opponents would normally do, and maybe blend those with rules as written.
All right. Well, we've got one more question for you, and
Bob's gonna have
think
a heyday with that one.
this is going to be your
I
favorite.
look forward to it.
Oh boy.
Elena, if you could bring up question 5, what is a good substitution for a perception check in DCC? We've got a lot of 5e players that might be coming over to DCC, and they're accustomed to making certain rolls and getting certain allowances for finding things and investigating and perceiving. What do you think about this, Jen?
Are we still in Lankhmar, pretty please?
Sure.
I
We
mean,
can be.
we can be,
No,
yeah.
Honestly, unless it's written into a scenario specifically, like make an intelligence check here. I'm not a huge fan of this rule simply because I remember so vividly the Call of Cthulhu character sheets, where you actually have the spot hidden skill
Yep.
check. And I never understood how you could be good at it and then get better, and then get better. Each time you succeed, you get to put a little check by it and try to raise that skill. I kind of feel like that's an intuition thing rather than a trained eye, unless you're Holmes.
I
So
could give you an example for that. I do read a lot of mystery novels and, Sherlock Holmes and whatnot. And so I've actively tried to advance my noticing skills. So, like, if we're in a restaurant eating, I'll look at someone's wardrobe and see what kind of shoelaces they have. Like, if I ever need
I
to
love
say
it.
that, I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. Like, if I ever need, I look at someone and I say, if I need to identify this person to the cops, what could I say? And so I try to, train my mind to remember and see just things on a first glance. It keeps the mind sharp.
Okay, rules as written. Intelligence checks are supposed to be used for things like spot hidden. Luck is supposed to be used for finding things.
Listening.
Like
Is there something on the other side of that door making noise? I don't know. Let's see if it's making noise right now. Make a luck
right,
check.
like for surprise checks, for initiative, blowing someone's initiative, etc.
Mhm.
And Elaine, if you
I
could bring up handout 5B for Jen, because that's exactly what she's referencing. On page 67, skill checks for common activities.
But then we get into the part where I really dislike using luck as a mechanic where you factor your modifier in and roll a d20 and go for a high number. Because running convention games, you have to already drill this new rule of luck and burning luck into players' heads. So when I have them roll, I'm like, roll high for everything except when I ask you for a luck check. That one you want to roll low.
Yep.
I feel like a total heel if I turn that on its head and say, well, no, I need you to roll high on this one. No,
It's
I
extra special.
gotta make, I at any
I
table, you
feel you.
want your table rules, your home rules to be known up front at the beginning of play, and that is one of mine. Luck
I
is
completely
always a
agree.
low check.
I agree. It's so much easier not to mix it because some people are still confused by that. Well,
I'll
Mhm.
say the skill chapter is like 1 page. It's very simple.
Right?
I think handout
Maybe a
5A
page and a
covers
half
a
of
heck of a
art.
lot of it. Uh,
handout 5A, you're exactly right, Stefan.
yeah. It,
DCC RPG, it's made kind of rules light for this perception area.
uh, generally, don't make them roll skill checks for stuff like that. If they say they're looking for a hidden door and they're putting their hands all over the walls, there's a hidden door on the wall. They
Now,
found it,
if it's
folks.
trapped, I'll need you to give me a roll. It might not
Yeah,
tell you what mod to
but
give
you
you
did
yet.
find it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've even got some guidance from JG on this one, digging back through the forums. If you can
Oh
bring up
boy.
handout 5C, Stefan found this one as well. And, we're going to end the show with the words from the Dark Master. Not trying to sound flippant, but the longer I played this game, the less I used any perception related checks. Early on, the above logic was exactly the kind of thought process I was engaged in. And early on, I called for more checks. As the game evolved and I started challenging players more on how to define their character's interaction with the environment, like you search the chest, what actions exactly does that entail? You scan the cavern, where exactly do you look? And so on. If they say they tap the bottom of the chest to listen for hollow spots or otherwise specifically examine the bottom, then they find the secret compartment. So that whole little clip right there, he's kind of reinforcing just go through role play. Let the game itself and the players tell you their perception of what they're doing, and that's the
And
check. You don't need to roll
force
anything.
force the players to come out of their boxes, out of their little safe zones. They're
All
they're
right.
not just moving around characters on a screen using a mouse. No, you
Dying Earth doesn't have thieves because you don't need them.
Stefan, what is your official answer? What is a good substitution for perception checks in DCC?
The best substitution is telling me what you're doing and being more specific about it. A second best answer is giving me an intelligence check if it's something related to being smart and knowing about stuff. Or I won't do a rollover. I won't do a roll high luck check. Just a normal roll under luck check for anything that is less poorly defined or more poorly defined.
Absolutely. My official answer is a good substitution is active role playing. Ask the player what they're doing, tell them to describe it, engage them. It'll make your games better. Rules is written, of course, on page 67. Listening is a luck check. Searching and spotting is an intelligence check. But I would roll low as well. Jen, what is your official answer for this last question?
you guys have nailed it. You don't need me for this.
All right.
That's not true, Jen. We need you
Although
here.
I
We do.
I can't wait to sit at a table with you guys again. That'll be great.
Well, Jen, thank you very much for coming on. It was a blast having you on. You are a great guest. Everyone who comes on here usually tells us a secret about what they're working on. You got any secrets to share with the viewers?
Ooh, now that my position has morphed a little bit, that would be a really bad idea. But I can maybe tell you that y'all should really, really look at those ion stones.
Okay.
All right. Little hint for the viewers there. Also, everyone, if you haven't got the email, Goodman Games' holiday sale, Black Friday sale is going on right now.
It's the
40% off.
holidays.
Holidays. 40% off of Goodman Games products as long as they're not new or pre-order and stuff like that. And then I think it's 20% for third-party products.
Right. And then there's items. There's a thing I can give you. Uh, New items were added just today that have coupons on them, sale prices rather,
What?
that you
There's a
can,
special sale where it stacks.
yes, they started it on Sunday, so there was a list of items there. And today there was a new list of items on sale that the coupons stack with. And that might be a trend.
I already placed my Black Friday order.
It's not that hard to get to $100 again.
It's not.
Go get you some
That's
Mutant
true.
Mayhem minis or something.
Even after coupons, if your pre-tax total comes to $100, you still get free shipping within the U.S.
Mhm.
All right, Jen. Anything else you want to share with the viewers? Anything you got coming up personally, or?
Just that this community continues to rock, and I am so very fortunate in where I am. So thanks everyone for your support, and come visit us at the next con. I think it'll be Gary Con for no, sorry, PAX Unplugged is the next con that we have a presence at, and Gary Con is the next one you can actually find me at.
All right, Stefan, you got anything coming up?
No, quieting down for the holidays. I hope everyone has some good time with your families and stay away from those bad family members. Don't invite the weird uncle unless it's Brendan.
All right, our next show will be December 6th with Bob Brinkman, the other
Good luck.
Brinkman. And we've got a whole boatload of questions for Bob to catch up on. So it's going to be a fun episode. Make sure you tune in. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and have a great week.